Good afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gloria Gutman, the founding director of the Gerontology Research Center and also the founder of the Department of Gerontology, which originally was called the Program in Gerontology. When I came to SFU, I was called Coordinator of Gerontology Programs. My first job was to create something to coordinate. So it's really been an enormously gratifying experience to be here at SFU and to be able to see we're now 42 years for the center, 41 years for the program, and to see how successful we've been in terms of having impact on programs, on policies, and having our students in leadership positions all across the country, including in the United Way and in the Alzheimer's Society here in British Columbia. So let's just give a hand to SFU, who had the wisdom to let me come here and get started. And it was UBC's loss. After 42 years, I'm still mad at them. I'm also barely 5 feet tall, so I'm standing on a platform, and I was instructed by Andrew that, just so they can take it away, because the other people are all taller, that I should introduce the other three speakers, and we're going to have them present in the order in which they appear in your program. Mei Feng, who has a joint appointment with Urban Studies and Gerontology and is new to our department. We're delighted to have her. I know her from her previous employment with the Star Institute. Secondly, we have Laura Delorier, who I know in two contexts. She was a student in our program, and in her role as director of the L'Chaim Adult Day Center. For those of you who know part of my research history, I have always been a very strong supporter and advocate for adult daycare. And our third is Pamela Martin from the BC Center for Palliative Care. And that's a group with whom we have done, my team has done research. And in particular, this session is one very close to my heart because I work with marginalized groups in a variety of different projects. And the groups in particular that I've worked with have been the LGBT community, but also with the two largest ethnic minorities. They are not marginalized groups in the traditional sense, but they have special interests and special needs that need to be addressed. So I'm delighted to welcome our three speakers, and we'll ask May to come up and be the first one.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Thanks so much, everyone. So my name is May, and I'm a joint faculty member in Urban Studies and Department of Gerontology, and I recently moved back from the UK. So this study that I'm going to be presenting is a UK-based study. So it was really lovely to see earlier, the social prescribing initiatives on the ground. So for this project, I'm going to be introducing some research which has some key kind of implications for social prescribing, although not necessarily focused on social prescribing. So this project is a national UK-based study focused around understanding inclusive spaces and places with and for older people who identify as part of the LGBT plus community and older people with intellectual and developmental disability. So the Include Age story. So this is a photo of myself and my co-pilot, so Judith Sick-Smith. Some of you probably have known her for years. She was a professor in the School of Public Policy at SFU. And we've been working together since about 2010. So there's a really nice sort of intergenerational relationship. I was her student back in 2010, and now we're co-leading a really substantial, really exciting project. So the story behind Include Age is focused around this kind of idea for more inclusive aging. And often I think where one of the key barriers for researchers is structural. So where are the funding opportunities? We were thinking about this idea of mapping out what inclusive communities look like for years, but the funding call just never came up until, back in 2021, the Inclusive Aging Call came out from the Economic and Social Research Council. So we were really excited. Out of several projects, they commissioned 6 projects, one of which focused on disability, so older people with disability. One project focused on loneliness. Another one focused on frailty and ethnicity. And 2 focused around older people of different sort of ethnic backgrounds. And ours was unique in a sense that we were looking specifically at 2 populations, so older people who identify as part of the LGBT plus community and older people with intellectual and developmental disability. So we were actually hill walking in Scotland when we learned that we got the bid. And then we were kind of like, what do we do now? It's quite a substantial amount of money to do a quite important project, because I think one of the key things that we were talking about in our hill walks is who have we not heard from specifically from the older adult community in the UK. And this project is a community-based participatory research project, so we have a huge team. Fortunately, in the UK, our funding structure allows us to pay members of the community as co-investigators, so paying people for their time when they've joined projects. So you see that we're working with different community organizations that serve older people who are part of the LGBT plus community and older people who have intellectual and developmental disability across the UK. So why this project? I mean, community inclusion is huge. So, even before we start creating social services and programs and social supports, we need to think about different places and spaces where people actually feel like they belong. And what do these look like? I mean, in the UK, it's quite vast. You drive 30 miles down and it's a completely different environment, different culture, different feelings of belonging, different accents, different resources. So it is really about mapping out what community inclusion looks like. And perhaps the world is not ready for an aging population, but we are going to try, with Friesen, with the Gerontology Research Center. Recognizing that older people are not all the same, and as we're developing services and supports, really understanding diverse needs. And recognizing that community inclusion is key, so research indicates having a sense of community improves mental and physical health, decreases depression and anxiety, helps provide that community enrichment, and avoids sort of these age silos. So it is interesting because when we're trying to think about age-friendly cities and communities, a lot of initiatives focus around aging, so creating a space just for older people, but in that sense, you're kind of just siloing them more. So thinking about more intergenerational type communities and avoiding age silos. But what's interesting about this project was that we were working together with different community groups during the COVID-19 pandemic, so everything was virtual. Earlier, there was a discussion around, community connectors, but really thinking also about digital community connectors as well, because a lot of older people that we work with are online. I think this sense that older people are not online, not engaged with technology, I think a lot of times it's very much untrue. And if we're thinking about community, we also need to think about the different networks people have virtually as well. So when we're thinking about age and the digital divide, according to research, 80% of adults ages 50 to 64 are online, and 82% of those 65 to 69, and 75% of those 70 to 74, and 80 plus at 44%. And I believe these are UK statistics. However, there's a lot of people who still struggle to access different services and supports in order to have that kind of social support and everyday enjoyment. And then you have certain populations who are even more excluded. So even thinking about older people with profound and multiple learning disabilities. And as well thinking about how some older people may experience abuse, trolling, or discrimination online. So we were really keen to understand what these spaces look like for these particular groups. When thinking about barriers and facilitators of inclusion of people with learning disabilities, some of the key barriers that we've sort of encountered in our research is a lack of interest, for example, by local developers or researchers. There's a high risk of bullying. There's a lot of gatekeeping. We don't have a lot of in-depth knowledge around the types of victimization, the types of experiences, and this perspective that some people with learning disabilities are eternal children. At least that's what our participants are telling us. Now, key facilitators include having a lot of peer support, having access to digital tools and platforms, being able to adapt to individual needs, and having the available social network. Now, for older LGBT plus people, some of the key barriers identified include pressure towards, a very heteronormative kind of society, this idea of self-censorship, fear of being exposed, and, as I mentioned, abuse, trolling, and discrimination. Now, some things that we can do to help include more targeted platforms, more peer support and reciprocal interactions, safety, privacy, confidentiality, and the fluidity of choice. So with the Include Age project, we've made a little video, because you probably don't want to hear me chat the whole time, but this is something that we've created to give a nice overview of what the project is about. So hopefully the sound works.
All about finding out from older people who have learning disabilities and or who are LGBT plus about their experiences
on how older people feel comfortable and included or not in their local communities and in the places where they spend their lives.
Certainly growing up, I was the only queer in the neighborhood, and it was always felt different, always felt othered. It wasn't safe to be who I was.
Sometimes I felt bad that everybody left me out. People just picked on, when I went to the shop, people picked on us all the time. Because I've got a learning disability. And because they thought I was different.
There are experiences you have where you're definitely excluded, and that can trigger me, and I can feel like I really want to be part of the bigger picture and part of the bigger dialogue.
And our project is trying to really work towards solutions or potential ideas on how to improve inclusion for those older people.
I think with me being what I've been through, it'd be nice if folk would start including folk who's got a disability, infants, have a bit of talk, and you feel with that, you feel as a person.
This could really help in supporting people to look a little bit differently and stop putting older people in one little homogenous group. We're not just older, we're not just LGBT, we're also a million other things in amongst all of that.
Older people don't want to spend their lives simply with people of their own generation, of their own age. They want to live their lives in their communities with everyone. And that's one of the things that through Include Age we are trying to address.
The way we're going to find out about inclusion and exclusion of people with learning disabilities and those who are LGBT+ is firstly to talk to them about their experiences, and particularly how those experiences connect with the way they felt in the past.
Because I've seen people with a disability who get into cafes, no one speaks to them. Yeah, it would be nice, you can even sit beside them instead of basically excluding them.
And then the whole online space will have exploded over COVID in particular. And we need to learn a little bit more about that, because there still is digital exclusion issues for some people as well. So I think obviously, although things are dramatically different now than they were, there's still that anxiety for some.
We're going to give them some electronic tablets, so when they're out and about in the community or when they're online, they can actually log with these electronic tablets exactly how they feel and how they're experiencing those places and spaces. We're going to then go and chat with representatives from services that support people with LGBT+ and those with learning disabilities in order to find out how we can improve inclusion and exclusion for those groups. If you'd like to find out more about the Include Age project, please do scroll through our website, which is also available in an easy read version.
Okay, so we're very proud of our website because of the easy read version. We had to use a special plugin, and it took hours and hours kind of rewriting certain bits so that it is easy read and accessible. Okay, so the key aims of this project is to really develop understandings of how we can co-create together inclusive physical, social, cultural, and virtual community spaces, places, services, resources, and with and for older, middle age and older people with intellectual and developmental disability, and older people who are part of the LGBT+ community. And absolutely want to start from very early on thinking about ways to translate our findings into more inclusive policy and practice. So we have several objectives. The first one is really about building more collaborative transdisciplinary partnerships. So working together with our community partners and working together with representatives or members of the older adult community to create this research. We want to host a series of very specific workshops, also to get the perspective from professional and practitioner stakeholders on how we can make these online spaces and the local community more accessible and supportive. We want to be able to generate solutions to develop more local and community resources, spaces, to kind of facilitate this idea of inclusion and minimize exclusion where possible. And of course, very early on, we want to be able to mobilize these findings so that there is impact. So why these two particular groups and why this age range? So we did want to take more of a life course perspective, and also from some of our colleagues who focus around working with people with intellectual and developmental disability, the life expectancy is lower, unfortunately, and so we wanted to start early on, so looking at working with people who are 40 plus. So individuals who identify as part of the LGBT plus community and older people who have a learning disability, or both. So there's where that intersection comes to play. We have a lot of participants who have a learning disability, but also are part of the LGBT plus community. And we really wanted to understand, so what does community inclusion and exclusion mean for these individuals? How are exclusionary places perceived? What are the experiences both online and in the community? And we wanted to include participants as citizen scientists so we can map out these experiences in real time, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So this is where the kind of academic-y bit comes in. I'm always excited about theory, so we are using a sort of very multi-level approach. So thinking about Bronfenbrenner and the different types of systems that are in play in order to, that kind of shape the experiences of community. So thinking about the digital world, the social sphere, the physical built environment, so the places we're sitting in, the place we're gathered in, and then also thinking about, broader in terms of climate awareness, resilience, and opportunities for change across generations. Now, impact is a huge part of our work. I'm not going to go into detail about this. I just wanted to show you, because you can't actually read anything. But we're really big on the theory of change, and it's not something theoretical. It's thinking about, yes, we have a research question. Yes, we have some plans in place, but we wanted to map out our short-term, long-term impact with our partners. And then think about, at the front end, what are our sort of key drivers. So we're building it off of the Sustainable Development Goals. So I just wanted to show you that. And of course, we're taking a very community-based approach. We have several partners. We have tools to really measure and think about our partnership. So after each steering group meeting, we have a questionnaire to assess how things are working and what's not working, how we can improve our partnerships. And include age, we prioritize our participants' experiences. So thinking about experts by experience. We have 3 community advisory groups, and they've given themselves their own title. So we have the Gold Group, 8 LGBT plus individuals, the Discovery Group, which includes 5 older people with learning disability and 3 service providers. And we run through everything that we create through these advisory groups, so their input is integrated across the way. Just highlighting some challenges, so time and resources are always key factors when you're doing community engaged research. It does take a lot longer. So again, just highlighting, having that inclusionary practice, getting feedback from our partners at every meeting before and after, and ensuring that, people's voices are heard and they feel that their perspectives are being prioritized and integrated into the research, particularly the study instruments and the tools and the ways in which we engage with our participants. We also use the co-researcher model, which is really quite exciting, something that I'm trying to develop within Greater Vancouver as well with 411 Seniors, so creating a community hub so older people can and are very interested in research. So why not develop a hub of older adult researchers? Instead of just bringing people on board when you're developing a proposal, you already have people who are trained, ready to go, and who are interested in joining projects. So our co-researchers consists of 5 mid to older LGBT plus individuals and 5 mid to older people with learning disabilities. And they actually go out and help, collect the data, conduct interviews, help support analyze the data with recruitment. They're really heavily involved in the research, and we develop a lot of training materials and resources so that our co-researchers feel supported, that they're trained up, and if they need support, we have researchers on call that they can just call up and ask for support that way. So our project's really interesting in the way that we have several different methods. So we want to understand life course perspectives. So we conduct some life course interviews ahead of time, understanding what people's experience of place and environment are from when they're young all the way up till their current age. I guess it's really to understand how key events have shaped their experience of community inclusion. So if there's a regeneration project, how has that shaped their experience? Have their social networks been broken up because the neighborhood's too expensive to live in, all their friends have moved on, or just really mapping out these key events. We also want to collect some data in real time, which we use geographic information technology, which we give older people tablets that they can keep. There is a set of, there's a survey on the tablet, and they can take it around with them. Anytime they feel like there's a place where they feel very included, very welcome, they can actually fill out the questionnaire and actually upload videos or photos or stories. And by the end, we hope to have this all mapped out. So you'll see across the UK, oh, this place is very inclusive. This place does not feel safe. Why is that? We're also wanting to do some social network mapping. So that's really to gauge the kind of online community. Who are people's communities online? And finally, we don't want to leave out people who can actually make the decisions and shape the community. So we're doing some organizational interviews with advocacy groups, support services, and policymakers. Okay, sure, no problem. So I just want to quickly kind of highlight some of the preliminary insights of older people with intellectual and developmental disability. This is from the life course interviews. We haven't started the place study just yet. But it is really thinking about, having that resilience in the face of adversity, feeling the need to strive for social inclusion and belonging, navigating different relationships and intimacy, coping with caregiving responsibilities, which is not something you think about, because we think about people perhaps with learning disabilities, you're thinking about caring for them, but actually they are doing the caregiving as well. So just something to point out. Seeking supportive communities, which is key, and reflecting on identity and difference. From older LGBT plus individuals, some of the findings overlap, but I just want to highlight some of the key ideas that came out. First of all, this idea of, which I thought was interesting, this notion of commercialization of pride. We celebrate pride, but often I think it's becoming a tool to make money, and that's something that was highlighted by some of the participants. Challenges of visibility and acceptance, and also thinking about different ways to navigate social spaces and community support. So I'm not going to go into too much details about the actual study methods, but this is something that's going to be coming up, this tablet mapping of real-time place experiences, the social networks interview, really thinking about a person's relationship across place and time and different modes of contact. And then, as I've highlighted, interviews with policymakers, social service providers, and also advocacy groups. Okay, just highlighting here that all of the methods, the findings feed into each other, and we have co-researchers shaping the process and our community advisory groups inputting all across the project. So this is a 40-month project. It ends in 2026, and we're really going ahead now with the actual data mapping of people's place experiences using the tablet. So that's really exciting. Okay, thanks so much for listening. Please check out our website. It's an easy read as well, which is something we're really proud of. And thanks so much.
Heterogeneity of the aging population, and that there is diversity within diversity and within the various subgroups. Also, I was struck by in your video clip, the idea of nothing for us without us, which of course is the rallying call of the disability community, but one which certainly was picked up this morning in Suzanne's talk. So now we're going to hear something different about a specific program within our own community as opposed to a research project, right? And I was struck this morning with the United Way presentation of all the excellent programs that we have here in British Columbia that many of us don't know about. So the second motive in this particular session was to introduce you to some that are doing a super job at a particular niche kind of service and group. So take it away.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? This floor's making funny noises. I don't know if it's my weight or not. I'm freaking out. Okay, hi, everyone. My name is Leah Delorier. I'm the Executive Director of the L'chaim Adult Day Center. I'm also a graduate of this gerontology program. Some time ago, when I was in the program, I did not do it online. I did it via correspondence, so it was a while ago. I was talking today about L'chaim Adult Day Center in particular. It's a culturally Jewish adult day center. And first, let's just tell you what is an adult day center. Does everybody know what an adult day center is? You do? Because let me tell you something. Most people don't know what an adult day center is or what an adult day program is. We try to say program, not center, because it sounds like daycare, and then seniors don't want to go because they think that it's like toddler care. It's not. So an adult day program is social and recreational, and it's in a supervised setting, okay? So most of the clients or participants that attend adult day center are more fragile. These are people that live within the community, and they are going to need assistance now. They can't just go to their local community center or their local gym. Now they're going to need a little more of a supportive setting. The needs of our clients range. Many have some form of cognitive impairment, some form of mobility issue, or both. A few are just socially and geographically isolated, and so they become changed because they're so isolated. But the majority, though, are being cared for by a spouse or a child or a grandchild. So our program has two parts. We're there for the participant, and then we're also there to ease the burden of the caregiver, sometimes called the invisible participant, right? Because we really focus on the senior, but we forget about that caregiver whose needs are maybe at the same level. And the cost is very low. Cost is very, very low. In fact, if you cannot afford even that low cost, then it is free. You can apply for it to be free. So there's no excuse not to attend an adult day center if that's something that works for you. It's a structured day, so it's predictable. You come in the morning, we celebrate you, we welcome you in, we have coffee, tea, and snacks. As people slowly come in, we talk about their day, we talk about social events until we get a group in, then we run a program. That program is always changing because you have to read the room. So yes, we have it all set out, but some days that's just not what the people want. They don't want to play bingo, they want to sing Frank Sinatra. So that's what we're going to do. And that's nice because then it's what's the word? it's not so structured, you know. It's exciting, and so that's sort of what most adult day centers do. Then we always do physical activity, keep people active to their ability, and we do that for 45 minutes, and then we always have a hot meal for our adult day center because of the Jewish where it's kosher. Kosher just means clean. That's all it means. All food is clean. It's just what the word means, and it's just a way that we eat, and it gives people an opportunity to socialize, and so that's what an adult day program is. There's 12 in Vancouver Coastal Health Region right now that are funded through Coastal Health. We are one of them. They call us specialized because we're culturally Jewish, but they are grossly underutilized, especially since COVID. Before, we were all bursting at the seams with lots of wait lists, and now people have either forgotten and case managers come and go, and the new case managers don't know we exist. So if right now, if you all know what an adult day center is, please tell 2 friends, and they will tell 2 friends. Remember the commercial? And so on and so on. Please, I feel like a Who in Whoville. Do you remember Dr. Seuss? And oh, Horton here's a Who. We are here, we are here, we are here. Adult day centers are here. L'chaim is 40 years old. Some of them are 50 and 60 years old. We're here to stay, but we need more people to be aware that we exist and to come on down. Tell your friends. All right. And so now, how do you get into adult day center? How do you get referred to adult day center? Well, there's a health unit. There's all different health units, say in Vancouver. I don't know how they work in other centers, but we have, Raven House and Pacific Spirit and Three Bridges. And there's a case manager there, and the case manager gets a call to the senior wants to have some services. They have to then book in a time and go to their home and do a full assessment, and that takes time. And that's how you get your other care as well. It could be for in-home services, or if you're looking for housing options like assisted living, long-term care, it has to be referred by a case manager. So that's why the earlier topics that Beverly and stuff were talking about, this prescription, that is very exciting, because how great would that be if we didn't need the case manager to refer to adult day center, that people could refer themselves to adult day center and sort of cut some of that red tape, because that red tape really holds people back. And so these are the criteria. You have to be unable to function independently. You're assessed as requiring it, and you have to afford this $10. So that's the way it says. If you go to our website, we lie. We say, oh no, you can refer yourself. A doctor can refer you, because we don't want people to not come because they don't want to go through that. Yes, I know they have to. They have to get this thing called a Paris ID, but we're going to help them through that process, because we just want to get them in to the family. Whether they work with us or not, that's not the case. Someone is reaching out for help, and we want to help them any way we can. Okay, so the role of culture and religion for older adults. This is really hard to find research on. I asked my friend Erin O'Dea, who's going to be getting her doctorate in gerontology soon, to send me some stuff. There's not a lot of research on this. So I'm just going to give you my frontline from the heart, what I know, right? I know that religion and culture is important to many people, and especially as they get older, they tend to go back to their roots, even if they were not religious throughout the most of their lives. As they're aging, they tend to start focusing back on things. My culture and religion is Judaism. I am not a religious person at all, but I understand my religion and I understand my culture, and that makes me feel good. And I'll give you a kind of an example. I've recently lost my dad. He died about 16 days ago, and so when he died, knowing like my culture, it helped me a great deal, because I knew exactly what to do. I knew I just had to make one call to this Jewish burial society, and my needs were going to be met, and things were going to go forward. And I felt really good about it, and I felt really proud about it, and it made me comfortable, and my community comforted me during my time of grieving. I'm sorry, still a little upset about it. He was 97, he had a great life, he was an awesome guy. The world owes him nothing, but you always want a little more time, you always want a little more time. So, but that really helped me so I understand more, because I was away from because we talk about community and I always think more about neighborhood. Oh, they're saying their neighborhood. But I also mean like my cultural, my Jewish community and my neighborhood, because this is Vancouver, we're all sort of fragmented. You have like your Italian area and your Jewish area and your Greek area. They have these sort of areas, and people who grew up in those areas that happen not to be part of that culture, they understand that culture and they sort of adapt it because all their friends were like that. So it all works out in the end. So like culture and religion, they do make seniors, give them comfort. And if you go to church or synagogue or mosque or wherever your place of worship is, you will tend to see a lot of older people in the room. And that's just the way it is. So it's not so bad to bring it into, say, a setting that is funded partially by the government. It works for us. Even though we don't just accept Jewish people, we accept all cultures. Those cultures also understand that we have a way of looking after our elders, which is similar to how their culture looks after their elders. So there's more of a trust, because people are entrusting their loved ones to us. They're very special to them, and they want to know that they're getting like the best care possible. And that's sort of what's sort of nice about having sort of an ethnic or cultural program that's still open to all people, but a little more focused. So it's not always about Christmas or Easter or Valentine's Day, but we celebrate all kinds of things, and we understand, differences in how to approach people in different ways. An example is, with us, we do have quite a few Holocaust survivors in our program. They were children at the time of the Holocaust, so all our staff are trained in trauma-informed care. Now, trauma, most people go through trauma in their life. You don't have to be a war survivor to have experienced trauma, but just having that extra education on how to approach people, how to deal with people and their families who are now being raised by people who experience trauma, understanding their needs, it helps in a whole setting. And so you need a strong team for that, and people have to buy in on that. Okay, what else did I say? Caring for certain culturally appropriate, needs for, So I feel there are a few culturally appropriate, there are a few, so L'Chaim is one, we're Jewish. There's Success, where they focus more on Cantonese and Mandarin speaking people, and they have more programming and stuff for that culture. It's still inclusive, anyone can go, but not everyone feels more as comfortable in there if there's a language barrier. I mean, we speak English, but then we also make sure we have staff that speak many languages, and we speak, I think, about 12 languages in our adult day center, and there's a lot of that. Most adult day centers do speak more than one language. That's all run in English, but just so that people understand. She liked the pictures. So I'm going to show you some photos of some programming we do. So what's sort of special about L'Chaim is that we are within the walls of the Jewish Community Center. So that's meeting the mandate of an adult day center being part of community. So, the center has a couple thousand members. There's 180 children below us. There's a high school by us. There's lots of activity. There's a art gallery. There's a theater. There's a Holocaust museum. There's a library. So like neighborhood houses or something. It's kind of nice to be. So you're still within community, and people drop by because it's easier to visit your auntie or your grandma for 10 minutes at the center while you're about to go for a swim than it is to make that appointment to go home. So it keeps people together. So these are just some of the activities we do. And I got some more pictures for you. I guess you can tell which is my dad. So we're blessed that we do a lot of different programming with, like I said, with the preschool, with the high school students, with the let's say the healthier senior group. So we're still included, and that's the most important. So people don't feel excluded and isolated. Now, to sum it up, I think that there should be more culturally appropriate programming of all kinds. This is just one that we particularly do. And what else can I say? Gloria's father and her husband attended L'Chaim because we're 40 years old. So we've been around for a while, a long time. And I think I've covered it. You know, there's always, because we're culturally Jewish, we don't just solely rely on Coastal Health. We apply for all kinds of grants to offer different kinds of programming for people, and that's just one way that not-for-profits survive. So it's just something to consider in different programming. But again, all the adult day centers, we all offer the same high-quality service. All the adult day centers, I know all the people that run them and have been to all their programs. They're fantastic. So please, tell 2 friends. They'll tell 2 friends. And let's get more people involved just in adult day programs. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you that as a caregiver, adult daycare for me was a lifesaver. It was the only time when I was comfortable that my husband was safe and that he was happy, because he would not allow anybody else to look after him or to do personal care besides me. And the fact that he was able to go and come back from L'Chaim gave me a break, and it gave him some socialization opportunities. So I can't not speak strongly enough about how important it is that we support and we advocate, all of us in this room, for the recognition that adult daycare deserves for the services they provide. And another really, really important part of life is in your latter years and at the point when you need palliative care. I work in that area also, and I really wanted you to have the opportunity to hear about some of the excellent programs that that her organization provides. So the BC Center for Palliative Care.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you all for having me today. My name is Pam Martin, and I am an Advanced Care Planning Master Trainer and the Evaluation Lead at the... I sure can. All right, I'll start over. Thank you. Hi. And so my name is Pam Martin. I am an Advanced Care Planning Master Trainer and the Evaluation Lead at the BC Center for Palliative Care. I'm really excited to be sharing with you a little bit about our project around cultural adaptation, or our cultural adaptation project for the South Asian and Chinese communities. So I see you have the notes here. Thank you for that. I've changed them since, so I'm actually going to use my paper. But yes, I would like to begin by acknowledging that the team at the BC Centre for Palliative Care lives and works on the Indigenous lands of the Indigenous people of BC. We are deeply grateful for the opportunity to live, work, and play on these lands, and we commit to doing our part, however big or however small, to decolonize the healthcare system. So, starting with some basics. As many of you likely know, advanced care planning is a process. It's an opportunity to think, talk, and document your values, beliefs, and wishes for your future health care and your personal care. The goal of advanced care planning really is just making sure people get the care that's right for them, even if they're unable to speak for themselves. At the center, we have a motto actually for ACP, and that is more, better, earlier conversations. We really like to focus on people talking and sharing their thoughts and values, beliefs, wishes. So in 2016, the center launched the My Wishes, My Care education model, and over the years has had a lot of success partnering with organizations in the community to spread education, ACP education across the province. The model has received national recognition by both the Canadian Foundation for Healthcare Improvement in 2017 and the Canadian Frailty Network in 2018 as an innovation that should be spread nationally. So as you can see here in this model, the center trains members of the community, usually coming from community-based organizations, but not always, to deliver interactive information sessions to members of the public. In order to make this as accessible as possible to people, we've developed a ton of resources for organizations, facilitators, and participants, and we do offer ongoing coaching and mentoring sessions for those trained facilitators. So about the cultural adaptation project itself, in 2019, the center embarked on what turned out to be about a 2-year journey to culturally adapt and translate the existing My Care, My Wishes model for the South Asian and Chinese populations in BC. The project itself was funded by Health Canada, and it was largely supported by an advisory committee who oversaw the work, working groups for both communities who oversaw the adaptation and translation of these resources, an internal project team, as well as community-based organizations who helped pilot the resources for comprehension and readability. So for that, we'd really like to thank PICS out of Surrey and the Meenaroo Center for Active Living out of Richmond. So why did we do this? So the evaluation data that we received when we were doing the My Care, My Wishes originally showed that there was actually quite low uptake of people from culturally diverse groups. And the resources were also available only in English, which people thought to be a barrier. This slide shows that the South Asian and Chinese communities make up 8 and 11% of the BC population, respectively, but less than 2% of the participants who actually attended our ACP sessions. So this project was really put in place in order to address this low uptake. And as part of it, we ended up translating the materials into Mandarin, Cantonese, and Punjabi. And since then, we've actually translated these documents into Hindi as well. And the center is looking forward to adapting and translating these resources into Korean. So this here is the adaptation process that we followed. First, we started by identifying relevant cultural perspectives. We then explored how the existing curriculum and our resources fit with the community perspectives that we were hearing about, and also how to overcome some of the barriers that we encountered. Third, we used the information from those first 2 steps to adapt the model. And once that happened, we undertook multiple quality improvement cycles of implementing, evaluating, and then refining based on those results. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we made sure to integrate community perspectives throughout the process with members of the 2 communities represented on the project team. Each working group was exclusively, more or less exclusively, members of each community group, and the advisory committee also had representation. We also conducted focus groups and surveys with additional members of each community. So starting with identifying cultural perspectives, we did this starting with a literature review and key informant interviews, and then we confirmed this through these findings through focus groups with community members. So although we were looking at 2 different communities, we actually found some common barriers for engaging in ACP. And just to highlight a few, we found that conversations around death and dying are often avoided or feared, which can, of course, cause resistance to advanced care planning because of the perception that it is strictly about end of life, which it is not. Within these 2 cultural groups, traditional gender roles, along with collectivism and filial piety, can add an additional layer of potential challenges or conflict within families, and that can impact the ACP process. We also found that there's commonly a preference for limiting or even withholding disclosure of a diagnosis from a patient, which can present challenges when it comes to respecting laws around healthcare consent and advanced care planning in general. So these are some of the findings that we found for the Chinese community. And now, of course, it's important to note that every single person is different and it should be treated as such. So this is really just research for people to be aware of in general. So, but with the Chinese community, what we found is that people often have preference for indirect or passive communication styles. So that's preferring, a substitute over a direct term. So think about somebody passing on as opposed to dying. There's also a tendency to avoid conflict as much as possible. It was also suggested to us that the Chinese community would be receptive to reframing ACP around practical benefits. So thinking about the public sessions as an opportunity to learn and looking at advanced care planning as a tool to avoid stress in the future. For the South Asian community, religion features quite prominently, including when thinking about the their healthcare planning. The strength of the community was particularly highlighted, as was the possibility, as Leah was actually mentioning, is that acculturated people may still refer to their cultural and religious beliefs when faced with serious life events. So some of the suggestions we heard about how to improve ACP engagement for both communities included a really big emphasis on storytelling. Tell us your story. What does it mean? Tell us what the value is of ACP. So tell these stories, show these videos, really, really important. And then also the fact that different people have different motivations. So for example, we heard that some people prefer being encouraged to focus on the positive. So things like, this will reduce your stress. It's a gift that you're giving to your family by having these conversations. It'll give you peace of mind. Whereas with other people, they said that they would respond better to avoiding the negative. So, really just hearing something like, this is actually what could happen to you if you haven't chosen a substitute decision maker. You may end up having a temporary substitute decision maker chosen for you, and you may not like who that is. So, there's the positive and there's the negative, and we were encouraged to use both in our examples. So once we collected and confirmed all of this information, we were ready to try our hand at adapting and translating the model's toolkit. Okay. So this slide here outlines some of the key adaptation themes that we used. We started with a toolkit-wide review just in order to reduce the overall reading levels and required health literacy, and very much emphasizing plain and simple language throughout the documents. So I think we were aiming for about a grade 5 reading level. As I mentioned, we included different stories and videos and information about some culturally specific values or practices. And then from there, we translated the toolkit using a stepwise approach. And this was started by having detailed discussions with people who were both fluently bilingual and also familiar with the content in order to figure out what the translations would be for the key terms and their definitions. And once that was done, then it made the translating of the rest of the materials much, much simpler. And then finally, we identified any outstanding information needs, which resulted in us translating ACP information directly onto our website and also developing new resources to support members of the public in completing a representation agreement. So representation agreements were seen as being very, very important, but sometimes an area of confusion for people. So all of this work resulted in an adapted toolkit that includes resources for organizations, facilitators, and members of the public. For community organizations and facilitators, what we did was we adapted 3 main resources. One is a program overview that basically outlines the model and is just really good background information for any organization that might be interested in adapting the model. We came up with a community partner guide with instructions and information on how to promote, plan, and evaluate their information sessions. And then a really comprehensive facilitator guide with all the information that a facilitator should need in order to conduct a session, whether it's in person, whether it is online, step-by-step guide, tips, tricks, the whole works. It's quite comprehensive. And so these resources are usually only available to members of organizations who are either looking to adopt the model or who have attended our facilitator training. Our next facilitator training is actually coming up in a few weeks, starting June 11th, and they're basically 3 weeks, 2-hour sessions, so for a total of 6, and that is what facilitators use in order to be able to go out and have these sessions with the public. So the next one is coming up in June. We'll also be having one in the fall, probably around October or November. So for members of the public, we created a multitude of resources really just to help them get started with advanced care planning. And all of these resources are readily available on our website and are translated in all of the languages that I mentioned. So these include things like an information handout, which summarizes key information about advanced care planning, a conversation starter guide, and that's questions that people can use in order to just start thinking about advanced care planning, or if they want to talk to a loved one but they're not quite sure how, it just gives them that information to get started. There's an advanced care planning checklist, which helps people figure out where they are in the process, anything they might be missing, or if they just don't know where to start, here's just sort of the overall of what it would look like to have an advanced care plan. And then those 3 resources to support people in making decisions about completing a representation agreement. So as I mentioned, we developed translated information directly onto our website. This information, even since the project has been adapted and expanded, and visitors can choose their preferred language using a drop-down menu on the top left corner of the screen. So the pages that have been translated are a glossary of key terms, an introduction to advanced care planning if you know absolutely nothing about it. There's 3 simple steps to developing an advanced care plan. At the BC Centre for Palliative Care, we use a think, talk, plan model, so it just walks people through that model. There's a page dedicated specifically to healthcare decision-making and the law, so all of their legal rights. If people are unaware of what the rights are in BC, they're able to access that there. There's a page dedicated to substitute decision makers, both for the people who don't know who they would want to choose or how you would go about choosing, and also for people who have been chosen and have accepted and don't know what that means exactly. So there's information for them on there. And then there's finally another page just directly for videos, multilingual videos that we have available. All right, so the last thing I'd like to share is that the BC Centre for Palliative Care will be having its biannual All Together Symposium this fall on October 4th. This year's theme is Nurturing Partnerships, Reimagining Palliative Care. So the registration is going to be opening soon for that, and we'd love to have you all take a look at our website for more details. It is bc-cpc.ca. Okay, so thank you.
Well, I know the center did some excellent work during this period of COVID, when they had to adapt from doing things the way that we'd done it before to doing it online. And in particular, the adaptation of the toolkit and the ability for community groups to deliver the message were really very interesting ways of doing knowledge translation, knowledge transfer, and certainly the theme of speaking to people in the terms that they understand is a key theme. And it came out in research that my team has done, as well as in your programs. We have now some opportunity of some 15 minutes for questions and answers. We've had 3 really interesting presentations. Please feel free to step forward to the microphone with your questions or your comments.
Thank you for your presentations. I'm a retired educator. One of the wonderful things that I experienced during my work as an educator was the recognition that we, every single one of us, tend to silo the people that we encounter, regardless of their linguistic, cultural, technological, intellectual abilities. Technology, and we all recognize the incredible benefits that we all have from technology, is daunting to a hell of a lot of people. And we can't simply say, go online. Because for a lot of people, it just doesn't work. They either lack the background, or the desire, or the ability, whether that's intellectual, economic, whatever reason for it. I've never owned a cell phone. My child, my son, who works in technology, is always on to me about, Dad, you've got to do this. And I keep telling him that the pace of change in technology is so great and growing by the minute that even he will at some point be overwhelmed by that change. And we have to acknowledge that when we deal with people that we encounter and the difficulties that they have, and work at it from that point of view. Thank you.
May, do you want to respond?
No, I would tend to agree. I think what we need to kind of be careful is to have this overall assumption that folks don't want to or can't or aren't already using technology. I'm just thinking about my dad before, and I was the one pestering him all the time. Get online, do this, do online banking and all this stuff. And it took him a while, but actually when he was at home for a lot of time because he was living with cancer for a while and he couldn't go out, he had to bring an oxygen tank with him. Actually, the online community, being online, being able to chat with his friends in different parts of the world was actually really comforting, and it was another type of support that he was able to access. I think a lot of times it is about having someone there who can show you and help you to navigate. And you're right, I mean, I can't keep up with the technology now, but we could always try.
Okay. Did either of you want to add anything on that topic?
On technology? During COVID, we could not open our doors. We could not have on-site programming, So we had to figure out a way to connect. Of course, we did the friendly phone calls every day. We phoned all the clients and their caregivers, but we were able to, at one point, if that client had a tablet or their children set them up on the computer, we started doing online exercise programs and different so the technology did, and they had to make the technology for us. People were coming up with new ideas because it's very difficult to work on this small laptop when you're dealing and you want to see everybody. So we got the big screen and the big speaker, and so we did adapt, but in general, our clients tend not to have that technology, but their grandchildren do. So now we have to communicate differently with the client, and then we have to understand how to communicate with the grandchild. That also helps in fundraising as well, how to communicate with one generation versus another. And I think that's just going to be the way of the world. But the more clients, more seniors are becoming more technically advanced, and some surpass us, because we tend to stay set in our ways and like, what? There's something other than word perfect? Okay. Sure, show me, because you start doing something, your kids go, what are you doing? Teach it. Like, oh wow, it usually takes me about 10 minutes to do that. Okay, so it's a learning curve for us all, but it's here to stay. It's here to stay.
Pam, did you want to add?
Yeah, sorry, my voice isn't on.
Here.
But, before COVID, a lot of our public sessions were being held. Is it now? Oh, ooh, thank you. All right, hello? Hello? Yes, okay. So before COVID, a lot of our public sessions were being done in person, and that seemed to be the preference. And when COVID happened, that's when we really had to think outside of the box, adapt. We did come up with an online way to go about it, but what we found was after the big wave of COVID left us, people really did want to go back to in-person. And so even though a lot of our training is so the training for facilitators is done online because it is across the province, and that's just cost and other things. But we encourage them as much as possible to go into their communities and actually deliver the message. Because of course, at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that the message gets out there about advanced care planning. And for some people, technology is the way to go. It's easy for them to do click, 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 and there it is. But we do recognize the importance of, and it's not even just about the technology, it's about the interpersonal, that connection, right? So having these sessions in person as much as possible is just, is quite beneficial.
Okay, Sarah?
Hi there. My name is Sarah Wu. I'm from the Alzheimer's Society of BC, and I just want to thank the panelists for their really interesting presentations. My question is for Pam. So your work on translating resources to make these really difficult conversations a little bit more palatable is wonderful and encouraging. And I'm wondering what engage healthcare providers, particularly family physicians, on delivering culturally safe.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, and I'm really glad that you raised it. Because I knew we were running out of time, and we really focused on the toolkit and the resources that are available, but one of the aspects of this cultural adaptation project was to engage healthcare providers in getting this information. And so what we did, like a third component of this work, was to create education modules that are available on the PHSA Learning Hub website. And so any healthcare provider can go and have that conversation. Now, we recognize that that is not nearly enough, like that's just scratching the surface, but it does look from the preliminary evaluation results that we've seen that people are engaging with it and are responding well to it. So that is one way that we have done it, but long way to go. Yeah.
Other questions? But on the technology one, I can't resist telling you, I volunteer sometimes to be a subject in a research project so that I find out, what are the questions that they're asking older adults these days. And I did one recently with a group from UBC who are looking into some of the more advanced technologies, and they wanted some response or advice. And what I said to them was basically what it stops a lot of older people is the first step. It's the grease the pan kind of thing. My mother made a lemon pie when she was a bride. Nobody told her if you don't grease the pan, you can't get the pie out without ruining it, right? So it's often that very first step of knowing which button, or if you have the pull-down menu, to know you have to pull down that damn menu, right? But, amongst the things that I say to older people are the technology is here to stay. Whether we like it or not, the iPhones are here, the robots are here. We better learn how to use them to our advantage. Just last week, the Wall Street Journal had 4 pages dealing with artificial intelligence. I give you notice now, that's the next conference I want to organize, is on artificial intelligence and older people, because it has all kinds of ramifications. It's here to stay. We better know when we're talking to a robot as opposed to talking to a real person. And if you're talking to that robot, what questions to ask, how to phrase it. You may not know, but if you're lonely and you have nothing to do, pick up your iPhone, dial to Siri and say, Siri, tell me some jokes. Siri, tell me some riddles, and she can keep you entertained for a half an hour, for an hour. As long as you keep asking her questions and giving her some cues, she will give you entertainment, and it doesn't cost you anything. So if you're lonely at some time or bored, phone up, dial to Siri. It's better, I think, than the ads they put on at late night about finding somebody to talk to.